Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come.
Well, we have to announce it.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for the great telling.
Edward!
Tell us the story, Uncle Igor.
I'm good.
This was passed to me, and I don't know how far it's been.
Oh. Gather my children, my acolytes, my followers. All who wish to be
And your annoyed family members?
my annoyed family members. Gather round. We are met here today. We are met here today upon this sacred ground. This ground is sacred because, well,
You say so.
yeah, pretty much. We've been here a lot. I have calculated and determined I have spent exactly 1 year of my life in this spot over the years.
That would explain the mold.
Yeah, it's the mold. That's right.
Ground or on him?
This isn't a beard, this is mold.
Now, is this a...
Well,
Is this a pocket?
and people have come here and they have often asked me, Uncle Igor,
Uncle Igor.
what is Celtic Happy Hour?
What is Celtic Happy Hour?
Ah, I'm glad you asked that question.
The 5 questions.
Yeah, well, yes. Which is the stupid son? Yeah.
Why is this night different from all other nights?
We are sober.
Manis ka na hakalik.
Delilah
Ikaw, hanigot.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hashem. Whatever. So we are here gathered because in the ancient of days, before the Romans came, the ancient Celts had their own religion. It was run by the Druids, and you know, it was often very difficult to tell who was a Druid. You could see a woman walking down the street or mud hole, as we have here, and you would look at her pass by, and she doesn't look Druish.
Oh, man.
Gets worse every year.
There is an uncracked coconut within reach. So keep that in
And
mind.
so, well, the Druids were very, very vexed, and the Celts were very, very vexed by the Romans. And they decided, a group of them decided, to take the holy faith of their Druids elsewhere. And they had heard of a land far, 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 far to the west, in which Druids might practice their faith with impunity. And so they gathered up all their sacred items. Now, the Druid religion had many sacred items. The first of which was the Druish altar. Druish, yes. The Druish altar. Now, if you look behind you, or in front of you,
Yes, here we go.
The Great Gate.
Depending on where you are.
or the Great Gate, or the smaller representation, the Great Bar of camping,
Yes.
you will notice that it appears very much like Stonehenge, Avebury. But what the archaeologists have always been missing was the reason for the holes that were about 4 feet down from the top of the cross rock. Okay? Now, here at Cooper's Lake, we have Runestone Field. And they say it's because they planted some runestone there. Nay, nay. It's Runestone Field because that's where I discovered the runestone of the Druids that told me of their religion and of Celtic Happy Hour. You see, the Druids would gather at sunset, which is neither day nor night. It has magical significance. They would stand at the altar. Now, the rocks at Avebury and such, the land around them has been eroded. But if you look, the place for the brass bar that you see over there, or bronze bar at that time, the holes were there. You just have to look for them. So they would stand at the altar, and they would put 1 foot on the ground in honor of the god of the earth, or the goddess of the earth. They would raise 1 foot upon the golden bronze rod in honor of the sky god. And they would stand there, and they would take orbs of the sun, round orbs of maize, ground maize that were indigenous only to the Celtic lands. Just like this, you see, this is the holy orb of the sun.
Do not be fooled by the triangular heresy.
That's right, the triangular heresy. And they would take the orb of the sun, and since it was sunset, they would dip it into the sacred salsa, which means, of course, the fire of the sun, the sol. Here we go.
Visual aid. Yes, visual aid. It's better than PowerPoint.
So there they were. Now, they would have this in one hand, and in the other hand, they would have the sacred drink, because all religions seem to have their drink and their solid food. You know, the Greeks have ambrosia and nectar, and the Christians have the wine and the wafer. Well, the Druids had their drink too. It was made from the sacred tequila, which came from the sacred agave plant, which only the Druids knew how to harvest, because the Druids were the keeper of the sacred tequila bat. The sacred tequila bat was a bat that would eat the tequila, or eat the agave, and wonder of wonders, through its internal organs, it would actually be able to change the agave nectar into tequila. It's a miracle! And of course, they had to keep these in a specific place because they were sacred. And you know, where do you keep cats? In a cattery. Where do you keep birds? In an aviary. Well, they had to keep this in a battery. And that's where we get the word battery, because it became corrupted, but it was a symbol of power because of the power of the tequila. Well, oppressed by the Druids, well, and from that they made the sacred margarita, because they would take the lemons and the limes that they got from Galicia, which was a Celtic stronghold, and they would squeeze them, and they would come out with a sea green color, and they would mix the sacred tequila, and they would dedicate this to Mar, the god of the sea, and they would put salt around the rim, of course, of their mugs, because it being the sea, you had to have the salt and the sea green. And they would raise on one hand the margarita, gar being the root for spear, which means the little spear of the sea, because it like gets you right there. And they would raise the sacred orb of the sun at sundown, the hour of great felicity, or Celtic happy hour. Well, they took all these things to the New World. What? And the natives in the New World were very happy, except they also had agave plants of a different strain, but they interbred with the sacred agaves that they took out of Britain, and they took all of them to keep them from falling into Roman hands. Same with the maize and the bats. Yes.
I don't think she believes that. She's never seen a tree gator either.
That's right.
All of them.
How about,
All of the bats.
how about barking tree spiders?
Oh, they're in
Well,
a
you know,
Tree gators there.
the bats were very rare and very sacred. That's why they had that drink. You know. So they came to the New World, and there were plantations, fields of plenty of agave. And the bats, they actually let loose into the wild because they didn't need to cage them anymore into batteries. It was a whole new open land. And the bats interbred with the local bats, and they became a nuisance because they would start they were destroying all the native agave plants. You know, there were so many of them that they populated. So the natives started covering the agave plants with little cages and keeping them away. Well, the bats didn't know what to do.